everyone, welcome to episode 3. This is my personal story of pregnancy and fertility. So we're at pregnancy number 2, part 1. And I just wanted to preface this conversation by letting all of you know that this conversation, this part 1, part 2, could be a little bit triggering for people. So if you have, trauma or triggers around miscarriage, doctoral procedures, blood, things around that nature, I caution you to just honor yourself, honor your feelings, and don't listen if it doesn't serve you. My point of obviously saying this is to make sure that I share the story with the people who really need to hear it and will resonate with them. And I'll do my best to, keep it factual, keep it understanding, keep it light. But I do have some tissues just in case, and I've grounded myself with some of my special blend of essential oils for stress and relaxation. So I'm getting into my Zen mode, and a couple crystals just to hold on to and keep a positive energy as I tell this story, because it's triggering to me too. I mean, this didn't happen very long ago, and I'm still on my healing journey, but I have come a long way, and I have healed quite a lot of the immediate trauma and pain, and I want to impart that on you and bring you along on my journey. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this part of the story happened just last year, so that is June of 2019. We were actually on our way to flying to Florida. We live in New York, and we were headed to a friend's wedding, which was super exciting. It was a bunch of college friends that we haven't seen in years, and we had conversations around having another child. Johnny was 4 at the time, actually 3 at the time, that summer, and was turning 4 last fall, and we were like, maybe we should try to put that on our radar. He's in school full time now, so having an infant at home, it will give us the opportunity to pay that ongoing 24-hour attention to an infant, while making sure that Johnny doesn't feel like his needs aren't being met, and he has friends at school, and he's kind of gone for the day, kind of doing his own thing, and not feeling like maybe we're splitting ourselves a little bit too much. So we were kind of like zeroing in on, hey, this might be a good time to start trying, although we really hadn't yet. It was sort of like the start of the conversation. So really the past 4 years after having Johnny, it really wasn't on the table for us. I knew that I wanted my children quite a few years apart, at minimum 3 to 4, up to 5 or 6, just because I wanted to be able to give my time and not feel like it's one after the other. I know that some people really want them back to back, and I can totally understand that. And sometimes we really just don't have control. I mean, clearly I don't have control over whether or not, God will grant me another child or not. So, but that was sort of the idea that we had agreed upon going into this. So coming back to the weekend, right before we got on a flight, it was Thursday. My mom was just coming over to watch Johnny because we were just going to go for the weekend for our friend's wedding, spend a little time hanging out with them, and then we were going to come home. And so my mom was going to watch Johnny at our house, and I don't know what compelled me to test. I had like a random test left over for a while back, and so I took a pregnancy test, and I was due for my period. I wasn't exactly late. And I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I did. And I was shocked after the few-minute wait to see those 2 lines. It was clear as day. It was so striking. Like I said, I'm not even sure I was totally late on my period yet. So I was like, wow, this is remarkable. Clearly, my intuition told me, hey, you better test before you go have some drinks at a friend's wedding all weekend. And sure enough, that completely edited my behavior at the wedding, which it was still so much fun, but definitely did not get to have the sushi and the drinks, obviously, and stuff like that. But it was still awesome. Although I started to feel tired like immediately, so that kind of worked on me a little bit. And I had a crazy bad migraine when we got down there, so I'm not sure if it was just due to the travel or the onset of the pregnancy, but all in all, we had a great time. Jonathan was floored. I basically just took the test, ran downstairs, and was like, oh my gosh, before we get on the flight, I gotta tell you something. So we were so happy. kind of taken by surprise because, like I said, we weren't actively really keeping it on our radar to try, but we were like, hey, this is really awesome. What a blessing. So, having been through, as you may have heard in the first 2 episodes of my story, that, my pregnancy with Johnny developed quite regularly. Some morning sickness again. Actually, the morning sickness this time was a little bit more intense. I had a ton of food aversions, which I also had with Johnny. I didn't have as many cravings, although with Johnny I craved a lot of salad, which was kind of nice instead of all the sweets and stuff. But with this pregnancy, it was like I could not stand the smell, the look, the taste of popcorn. I don't know why popcorn. And like to this day, I'm still not back to loving popcorn. Some aversions just haven't left me. Bell pepper is another one. I used to like red pepper and hummus and stuff for like a snack or lunch. That was one of my aversions with Johnny, and I still haven't gotten that back 5 years later. And with this pregnancy, it was the same thing. Yogurt, not a big fan of anymore. I used to love yogurt. Some of the really healthy things too. I'm coming to realize like these are great snacks. And chicken, which was more intense with Johnny, but still was there and present with the second pregnancy. Didn't like chicken. Still like will eat it, but not a lover of it now. So it's interesting how certain things about your taste and your cravings and your desires and your aversions change over time, and those were definitely some of them. But everything developed what I was thinking normal, kind of got over the nausea. They were going to prescribe me anti-nausea medication, but I did find essential oils, ginger. I went back to some of those mints that I was talking about in the first episode with Johnny's pregnancy, the Trader Joe's green tea mints. They were really good. And, kind of found some new healthy modalities to regulate the nausea. And sure enough, it kind of subsided. We were headed towards that, 2, almost 3 month period. We traveled all summer, which was a lot of fun. We went to a business conference in Milwaukee, and we went camping, which is our, annual family camping trip. And, I had done pretty much all the same things that I had done in my first pregnancy and really didn't think anything of it. I guess you could say I was fairly confident that, hey, I had a great first experience. What would indicate I would have a second poor experience or, not a good experience? My health was still good. I was heavier to start than I was the last time, but I stayed active and, continued to walk and be physically active and, just ate right and stayed away from the things they tell you to stay away from. And everything seemed to have been going good. I remember in Milwaukee have like extreme exhaustion again, where, I couldn't just do the normal things that we would do. We'd pick like one thing a day to do as a family, and then he'd go off to the conference and I would take naps with Johnny in the hotel room. I just like didn't have the same amount of stamina and energy. And all the while I had no cramping, no bleeding, no spotting, no nothing to indicate that anything was wrong. As a matter of fact, as we got closer to that 12-week time period, where that's kind of what they say is like the time in which you announce pregnancy because you're through the safe or the danger period of having a miscarriage, which I don't fully believe in. And I remember actually telling my family right away, and I was like, in case I ever need the support from you guys, like, because you guys are my rocks, I'm telling you that I'm pregnant right now. And I didn't realize at the time why I was telling them in that fashion instead of just like, hey, I'm pregnant. But there was like this disclaimer. Maybe subconsciously, I knew something was going to happen, but clearly I'm glad that I told the right people that I needed by my side when I went through what I went through next. And so, I even felt, like my belly growing. My uterus was kind of like growing and getting bigger. It felt like it was getting bigger faster. I was like, geez, I don't remember like growing so big in the first 12 weeks as I did with Johnny. So I was like, okay, maybe there's twins. Maybe, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. But I remember by the end of July, which was my husband Jonathan's birthday, really feeling like, wow, I'm almost starting to show, and I'm definitely feeling more pregnant than I was the last time around with Johnny. So I had regular doctor's appointments. There was no imaging done, no blood work done, just kind of check-ins, which I thought was a little different. I would have liked to have seen some form of image early on, but oftentimes when you've had a very normal, healthy, developing pregnancy the first time around, they're going to treat you basically the same way the second time around. So there was no need to say, like, we need to do extra imaging or anything of that nature. So we got close to my 12-week ultrasound appointment, which is the one that they date the fetus and they make sure it's growing on time, and they look at certain parts of their spinal cord for development and what have you. And my husband Jonathan was like, "Ooh, I have a meeting scheduled. I didn't realize that this was on our calendar," because we live such crazy lives sometimes. And he's like, I feel really bad. Do you want me to cancel? And I'm like, it's okay, hon. Like, I know this is important. And it's last minute to cancel on your client. And, you know, I said, it's going to be routine. I'm going to show you all the pictures. I'm going to send you the ultrasounds. Don't worry. I got this. You know, I really just was like, no pressure. We had a scheduling mistake. No worries at all. And so I went alone. And, you know, I didn't think anything of it. I've gone to a lot of my appointments by myself. He did go with me on my first pregnancy to the ultrasound when we saw Johnny, which was amazing to see that little baby at 12 weeks. Like, oh my gosh, there's really human there, because you just only begin to feel pregnant and you're like, this is really happening. But I was like, you know what? It's your loss. You're not going to be able to see it live, but I'll definitely show you everything. And so he was okay with that. I was okay with that. And there I went to my appointment. So as they usually do, they start you with the imaging process. They do the ultrasound, and then they bring you in the room and they talk about stuff, and they, you know, they kind of move through the appointment. So I get in the room, and, you know, I started to feel very slight cramping the night before. Again, no spotting, no bleeding, but just like something off. And I'm like, okay, I wonder why all of a sudden I'm feeling something the night before I go to my appointment. But I'm like, it's not very severe. I'll go to the appointment and I'll see, you know, what happens. And I'll bring it up to them in case there's just something, you know, a little funky there or something I need to pay attention to. Maybe I'm dehydrated, you know, whatever. It was summer. And so she gets me on the table, and she starts to put the wand down, and immediately there was something wrong. She couldn't find the baby. And by 12 weeks, like, it's pretty easy to find with the external ultrasound. And she was kind of like digging pretty low in my pelvis, because obviously that's everything kind of grows up from the bottom. And I looked over and I'm like, there's nothing there. What's going on? And so she used an internal ultrasound, because you can get a lot closer to the base of your pelvis. And we start to see this little tiny pea-sized being. And I knew there was something wrong. Like, there's no doubt there was something wrong, but they can't really say anything as an ultrasound tech. And so it felt like the seconds and the minutes were ticking by so slowly, because all I wanted was answers, and I just felt like I was in the freaking Twilight Zone. So she started taking some measurements of this pea-sized thing, again, not really saying anything. And she said, well, I'll be right back. And I was like, okay. And she walked out of the room to get the doctor. Took forever. So I sat there in that room with the image on the screen in front of me of this pea-sized little fetus that never really made it to 12 weeks. And I had to wait. I had to wait for some answers. I was confounded. I had no idea what could have happened. It just didn't make sense to me. So I'll leave it there for now. That's part 1. I'll continue with part 2. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys soon. Love you.